are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as a parent?
Every mind thinks different. You can't influence their thinking. And the more you kind of let them be, I feel that they become more creative.
How do you ensure that milestones reflect not just the achievement, but also the effort?
Every milestone doesn't need to be success. They can be setbacks too. When you have a small setback, it's like, okay, what is it that you did not do?
So what's one piece of advice would you share to our listeners?
One thing I'll definitely say as part of my learning is let the kids grow on their own as well. Be there to support them, guide them, but also kind of give them some space where they can also think and evolve.
Hi, I'm Krishna Kart. Welcome to the Learning by Design. I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to share with you an inspiring story about the power of personalized learning and family values. But before I introduce our guest, I wanted to introduce my co-host, guest co-host, and a dear friend and a colleague, Kyla Pizania.
Hi, I'm Kyla. Nice to meet you. And I can't wait to hear from you today.
Yeah, so today we're honored to spotlight Ana Saxena and her family. So Ana is a proud mom of Kunal and Ishaan and Vixan. And Kunal and Ishaan, they have been our clients for a long time, like long, you're talking about a decade ago. And now Kunal is working for us with the Masterpiece Academy. So Kunal is a graduate of TJ, and Ishaan is currently at TJ. So together we'll reflect on how Ana supported her children, their unique learning needs, how they overcame challenges, and how she instilled family values. Okay, so whether you're a parent, a student, or educator trying to inspire future leaders, this series will inspire you to move on, to build resilience, and to guide success. So let's start. Okay, so welcome, Ana. So let's start with the first segment, discovering individuality.
Okay.
Every child has their own strength and weaknesses and challenge, and discovering those differences is such an important part of the learning journey. So can you tell us about Kunal and Ishaan's unique personalities and how their individuality has shaped their approach to learning?
Absolutely. So I think when you have kids, you always feel they are your kids. They'll always be the same, but they're never the same. Two minds are never alike. So I've always seen Kunal and Ishaan early on in their learning and in kind of raising them. I saw that they had very distinct personalities. Kunal, for example, started speaking a little late. He was a more observer. He didn't speak till almost when he was 3 years plus. I mean, he used to say some words, but not full sentences. But then he used to observe things. He used to love trains. He used to love Legos. So his personality has evolved into someone who's a thinker, who's an observer. And then he acts. Ishaan was talking when he was 8 months old.
Wow!
So it was very encouraging because he expresses himself. He knows how to communicate a lot more. So his style of learning has been more on discussions and conversations, whereas Ishaan's has been on reading and learning in a different manner. So I think, that was a unique trait I observed. And Kunal is now very much into sports. Ishaan is very much into drama, kind of stemming from how they were learning and observing things. So definitely, both the kids have been unique. It's been an experience raising them, but a pleasurable one.
Yeah, so I did not realize that Ishaan is in drama. So does he perform?
He does. He went to Naismith in his elementary and middle school, and now he's in TJ. So he was performing in Naismith every year, and even in TJ, he's part of the theatre arts club.
Wow! How I wish I could watch him someday.
Next time, for
yeah,
sure.
invite me.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, so reflecting on Kunal's journey, let's move on to Kunal's journey in, at TJ. What were the unique strengths and challenges as he prepared for TJ?
So Kunal by nature had been a child who has been very disciplined. He was very organized. I still remember when I used to do math questions, he'd carefully solve the problems and move to the next one. So I think his math, when he was taking his exam for TJ as he was preparing to get in the entrance, math and science was something he was very comfortable with. But again, because he was not an active communicator as much as Ishaan is, so his English was where he had to kind of spend a little bit more time preparing and getting comfortable with the format, more practice. And so that was one of the challenge I noticed. And thanks to Young Scholar Circle, I mean, he worked with you
Yes.
at that time, and it was, I think he just needed the right nudge, which I think you all rightly provided him, and he then overcame that challenge. So I think his personality showed there. Math was his skill, science was his skill, communication was his skill, but not to the extent where he had to practice a lot more to get comfortable with the format.
Yeah, I remember those times
Yeah.
because I remember I think he took extra classes with me
Yeah,
and then
one-on-one
knowing
with you.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing him that he thinks he's very gifted in math. Like he's always the top notch in my class. And what I did differently with him was, I looked at, I showed him this is like to think of it as a formula, and then it's like a light bulb, and it sparked.
Yeah.
So
I remember you told me
Yeah.
about it, and you know what? He got the knack of it then. And then I think from there on, as he was working with you, I think he got the formula as you're saying.
formula.
And then he was able to
Right.
understand. Yes.
I know it's the same thing with Ishaan. Now Ishaan, he's different.
He's very different.
Now I can see that he is more on verbal communicator. And I see his essay, as I can remember. I looked at the essay before coming to this. I looked at his essay. It's like, I had a different approach with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's much more focused on this. It's much more focused. But with Kunal, it's look at it as a formula.
Yeah.
So two different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Each other.
You have something to
No,
see.
I just think it's fascinating how their individuality influenced their
Yes.
path. So yeah.
How did you recognize Ishan's learning needs, and how were they? I think you've already touched on it. How were they different from Kunal?
I mean, Ishaan, the way math and science was his skill. I mean, they were both very similar on math and science subjects. But when it came to English, knowing how Ishaan was a communicator, so his style of English and essay preparation was very different. He is one who will not just write about anything by knowing a little about something. He loves to research. He loves to read articles, and then he wants to express himself. I still remember when he was a little kid and he had an assignment to write about Abraham Lincoln. So typically as a parent, I'll say, you know what, start from where he was born, how he lived, how he's accomplished his challenges and moved on. He kept thinking, he said, no mom, I won't do it like that. I said, why?
Really?
He said, because if I don't tell first that he did these things, how will people develop interest in learning more about him?
Oh, that's
So he just so his imagination, his way of expressing is so unique that I was very impressed. And this was very early on in his life. He was maybe in 2nd or 3rd grade then.
Oh, wow.
But he was like, I have to talk about his accomplishments first. And then people will like to know more about him. And I'll tell you, okay, now that you know
To,
about
like,
him, this is how his life is.
Yeah, to like hook the readers. Yeah.
So he's very different in the way he expresses himself.
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the second segment, lessons on the parent's journey. So parenting is as much about learning and growth as it's about guiding your children. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as a parent through Kunal and Ishan's academic journeys?
Well, so again, being a first parent, you're never prepared for that. You always think, you know what's right for your kids. You've been their babies. You know exactly what you need to do. So you know about that all their lives. So when they started studying, what I realized early on was that every mind thinks different. So, for example, problem solving. So when we think about a certain problem, like they were into math, they were into computer science, and me being in the same field, I was like, oh yeah, this is something I can teach them. This is exactly how it needs to be done. But when they started doing it, I realized their approach of getting the solution was so unique and genuine at times that I was like, oh, maybe my process was longer than what the way they were thinking. So what I've realized over time is that learning is unique. You need to let the kids, what I've learned is let them also explore their way of arriving to a solution in the way they think. You can't influence their thinking. And the more you kind of let them be, I feel then they become more creative as individuals. And I think it's also not, and it kind of cascades down because then they become more confident in what they're doing because they were able to do it with their thinking, with their thought process. So I've seen that a lot in them raising up that basically I will go with a solution, but then I'll actually learn to say, you know what, no, what you're doing is right.
Yeah. Anything that you wanted to add? To ask her?
No, I think it's just
that
It's
you
a
want to
good-
bring in from your counseling?
Yeah, but it's like a good opportunity for kids to really just be accountable for their learning also, but also just think outside the box. I think that's really what's missing from, general education nowadays. So
Yeah, thinking outside the box.
Yeah,
Those two are gifted.
yes.
Okay, so were there moments when you realized you needed to adapt your approach to meet their learning needs?
I mean, it was day to day. I mean, not a specific moment, but like as they were learning, reading, I was observing them and I was like changing my style of studying with them. With Kunal, I would kind of work on a lot of problems and look up papers for him. Okay, go and try these questions out and then let him solve it. But then I stepped away for defining how to solve it. And then and more discussions after the fact than before the fact and kind of giving him a cookbook to follow.
So it's a balance of stepping back and
Stepping back and then moving forward again to kind of, you still at young age need to steer them. You cannot just let them be by themselves.
then right.
But the thing is, the accountability kind of starts very early on. So what I did was I'll give him the work. If I'm even going away somewhere, Kunal would be one who'll say, "Mom, I finished it all." So if my being in the room was not important.
right.
And then I think the fact that I let him be, he took responsibility, got the work done. Then I stepped in to say, "Okay, let's see what you did," and then let's have a conversation. Ishaan has been, let's talk. So we'll communicate. And the same thing, he has gained accountability over time. And I think it's, with Ishaan, there were some moments though. There were moments at his school, certain incidents where I jumped in and then from there on he suddenly turned it out. Yeah.
Like this, what your approach reminds me of is basically what we're doing in the classroom. It's gradual release of responsibility.
Yeah.
You have, as a teacher, you need to learn how to, or you need to make instructional decision when to model, when to guide, and when to release, right? That gradual release of responsibility.
Yeah, and
by Fred
something-
and Fisher.
Something that she said that I liked hearing was you actually talk to them about it after. I think the conversation right after is also more important as well.
It's not just for me to say, okay, your answer was right. It's a
Right.
chance for them to express how they arrived to the solution.
Yeah.
Because that's a moment for them to also feel proud of.
Yeah. So the next segment, that's a good segue because the next segment is balancing support and independence. Finding the right balance between supporting, which we somewhat touched already, and giving them independence is such a delicate process.
Right.
How did you manage guiding Kunal and Ishaan while allowing them to take ownership of their education? Maybe focus on some other things other than the one that you've discussed. It could
So with
be.
Kunal, I think the main thing was, again, because he was very organized. So when he had to learn, the way I had to step in and help him was establish a plan.
Say that again.
To make a plan, okay, this is what you're trying to accomplish. Maybe like if you plan it this way, would this work? And again, not defining for him, working with him. But I think he wanted assistance and at least say, okay, Mama, is this the right path to follow?
Right.
If I do these things in this order, does it make sense? So that is working with him on that schedule, that plan, and with his academics kind of in TJ kind of going up. My time management and how to build that plan was key. But once that was defined, then Kunal was on his track. He'll read on his own and then he'll have his own milestones and he'll manage it well. But that was a nudge I had to give him. With Ishaan, something similar. Ishaan, the main challenge is around time management. With theatre arts and drama, which is a very time-consuming activity he does in high school, it's many a times about, again, okay, Ishaan, let's see what your schedule is, how you're managing your time. Let's talk about that. So that has been something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's looking back at Kunal when he was at TJ. Does he have more which one has more activities? Is it Kunal or Ishaan?
Kunal had activities early on. But Ishaan has much more.
Oh,
Much
really?
more. And especially because of his theatre arts. Again, my husband often laughs about it. I've never been to TJ as much with Kunal
Oh, yeah.
as compared to as many hours I've spent driving to TJ and bringing him back in his very first year. So I think Ishaan, because of his theatre art commitments, has to spend a lot more time at school. And
He
I
has a
think,
lot of extracurriculars.
yeah. Kunal did drawing when he was in TJ, but that was mostly in the first year. But then later on, it was more academics. But Ishaan is balancing it a lot more differently.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
It's really different, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, can you share a specific moment when you saw one of them
Mm-hmm.
take a significant step toward independence?
I'll talk about Ishaan. So he was a naismith and he had a history assignment and he was always a grade student. Maybe because of procrastination or maybe not studying at the right time. At the young age, he was in like 6th grade then, 5th or 6th. And he got a D. And I'm like, oh my God, Ishaan, you can see me. But again, I said, you know what? This is the moment for me to turn it around. Let's work together. And he had a chance to retake the test. So it's not like he would not have come out of it. But the thing was, how did he approach the first time? And then he was a little uncomfortable that he got a D as well. So D or maybe it was a C. Or maybe I'm just remembering. But then we worked over that over the weekend. It was a history subject, which is my favorite. So we'll learn about the stories. We'll talk about, okay, this is how the trenches were dug. This is what the war was about. And we had good conversations. And he started enjoying that a lot. So he went the retake. He came back to an A on that exam and he was perfect. But I think something clicked in him then. And he suddenly became very conscious about his grades all of a sudden.
Oh,
and that kind of really made him start taking more responsibility. I'll be honest with you, like starting 7th grade, I never had to see what Ishaan was studying. In his whole 7th and 8th grade in middle school, he was managing his academics all by himself. And I just asked him, do you need my help? No, Mom, I'm good. And he has been a straight A student since then. So I feel at that moment, when he felt a little uncomfortable, or maybe a little embarrassed that he went down there, it was a small moment in his life. But when I reflect back, I think after that, I really never worried about him. I was more thinking about, okay, what's about his high school admission and stuff. I never had to sit down with him and educate.
Yeah, so do you think that moment is a turning point?
I feel so because I think his realizing that something had happened which he's not feeling comfortable about. It was within him that he turned around. And then he loved his teachers. Naismith teachers, he can always like brag about them. He just loved spending time with them and the conversations they had and the experiences he gained from them. So he was also very conscious about not letting his teachers down. So that kind of a motivation in him has instilled into him being like working hard to make sure he's on top of things, he's ready for the class, and that kind of changed his personality and evolved.
That's really good. That's good. Yeah.
I think for me as a teacher, it's kind of like hard to see your kids fail. I kind of almost want to be like, no, I can teach you how to do this. I can help you with this.
Right.
But I think it's in those moments when they do fail, where, like you said, they keep it to themselves and they can either use it to like encourage them or they can use it to like discourage them. But I'm so glad that it decided it was a turning point.
It was a turning point. So I worked with him on that one exam, but after that, I never had to study with him, and I feel so proud of that.
Yeah, because if you bring in the Asian culture,
I
talk a little bit about that.
know.
Talk a little bit about
Every
that.
day checking, where are you? Have you finished your work? No, I never did that with him.
Oh, really?
Never had to
After
since
that,
then.
yeah.
Never had to since.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He used to, sometimes it'll happen, okay, tomorrow is math. Before that, like, maths homework is due on Friday. Are you done? Thursday? No, Mom, I'll finish it. But after that, I never had to ask him. And it slowly transitioned and phased down support.
Now, let's see. How do you find she kind of like already answered that. How do you define the right balance between giving guidance and stepping back? If you wanted to add something, go for it. But not, you can move on to.
No, I think what I've spoken mostly kind of summarizes it all. It's like show them the way, and I think I'll work with them on basically working with them, giving them a path to follow, but then step away. But let them also kind of learn how to walk on that path and not just be on top of them.
Yeah.
And then be there. But at the young age, you have to still be there. You have to still be around them, but you have to change your style of being around them to make them feel they are independent.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So, reflecting back on you when you were a child, like their age, were you raised differently, or is it the same thing that your mom did to you that you're doing to your children?
Actually, you know what? My parents never had to sit with me and teach me again.
Oh, really?
Actually, I remember, if you're asking me about my childhood now, that is when I was in 4th grade, my father was a maths teacher, and he was a principal of the school I was studying in. In 4th grade, there was a maths exam, and I got 70 out of 100. For him, it was like, my daughter, and I'm a maths teacher, how can she not get full marks?
No.
So
you were in India at that time?
I was in India at that time,
Okay.
and I still remember he worked with me. And he worked with me not by saying, why did you get less marks? He probably did the same thing I did. He studied with me. He made my
Oh.
concepts become clear. He gave me more practice problems, and I got a 98 in my finals. Half years was 70. But I think, again, it was, I think maybe similar experience, now that I'm thinking about it, very similar experience to what Ishaan had. But in my, after that, my parents never really had to spend time teaching me.
Mhm.
They'll be around me. If I'm studying, my mom will make sure all the snacks are coming in and all the comfort is there. And if I'm sleeping early, can just wake me at this time, and they'll be around me to support that way. But they never had to teach me. So maybe I think that's the way I was raised.
Yeah. So you saw it modeled and then it
Yeah.
just kind of.
Yeah, it transferred from
Maybe
generation
I
to
didn't think
generation.
about this. You just asked me the question,
Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
And I
because,
got a gift. I mean, I remember when I did that 4th grade maths test well, the biggest prize was my father said, what do you want as a gift? And I was like very young and said, I want to learn how to embroidery.
Oh.
So I still remember that moment, and it was a very special moment for me. But to be honest, like my Ishaan has kind of done the same thing, and it's more about our kids now.
yeah, and what I like about your family, Surab, the father, is there in very highly involved.
Oh yes, I mean he's also the same way. He wants the kids to take independence. He'll say, "I've told them they should do something," but he's not the one who's on top of it. But then if they're not on it, he'll ask them.
Yeah, so this is an example of, a family, an ordinary family who you really need to be involved in your children's education. That's how you show love, right? So that's why these are the stories that I wanted to highlight for our listeners. Okay, let's move on to segment 4,
Okay.
celebrating success and milestones. So every milestone is a reflection of effort, of growth, and family support. Kunal's TJ graduation was a significant event for sure.
Yeah.
So how did that moment mean to you and your family? Because for our listeners who are not in Northern Virginia, TJ, as you know, was the number one. I think hopefully it's still the number
Still
one.
is.
It's still in the top. And getting into TJ, just like my younger son, JR, told me, Mom, getting into TJ is harder than getting into Stanford because he got admitted to several months. So let's go back to you. How did that moment mean for you and your family?
It was a very special moment. All of us were there to see his graduation, and I think it was a moment of pride. And it was a moment of reflection on all the years gone by. And it's also a feeling of letting go. He's going to college now.
Oh,
So it was a moment of pride, letting go, and seeing him grow into a responsible young man. And it was a beautiful moment, and we just loved it. But it was all about pride and what he had become.
yeah. Well, I asked that question because I look back at the emails back and forth between you.
I
It's
know.
like looking back, it was way back 2017, and then I was giving you feedback about Kunal, you and Surab. Hi, Anna and Surab. This is,
I know.
and then now, he's now.
I mean, it should be a proud moment for you as well.
Yes,
because
yes.
Just the way he was my child, you have played a big role in his shaping his career. So absolutely.
Yeah,
I can see you feeling the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so proud of him as my student. Oh yeah, both of them.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you celebrate Ishaan's academic accomplishment? Because Ishaan passed both TJ and Academies of Loudon, and I remember we had conversation. Was it like last spring? 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, Krishna, Ishaan is having hard time. Is he gonna go to TJ or ACL? I think it was the same nice problem that Kunal had.
Right.
And then he ended up going TJ.
Right.
So tell us about it.
I mean, basically, how they celebrate his accomplishments is basically, again, making him feel that we are very happy about his achievements, being with him, and also making him realize, Ishaan, it was all you. I mean, we are all there to help you, support you, but when the exam is taken or when you're performing something or you're doing an experiment or anything of that nature, it is you showcasing yourself and kind of making him think that it was his accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Ishaan appreciates those kind of conversations a lot. And I think the best way to kind of make him feel accomplished is by recognizing that it's you who stood up and took ownership, and this is showcasing because you did it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that moment and that kind of conversation is what really kind of pumps him up, and he really enjoys. And we feel very proud the same way because we're not the ones taking the exam for him. He's the one taking the exam for himself, and his succeeding is all his hard work.
Yeah, he really worked hard.
Yeah.
Like those essays, he's like emailing me like midnight, and it's like, Ishaan, you need to rest. So he really worked hard. Now, does Surab bring them to TJ, or do they take the school bus?
They take the school bus.
They took. Oh
Take the
my
school
gosh!
bus.
So what is? How long is the bus
It's a long
ride?
day for him. He leaves home around 7:10. He gets up 6:30 and he comes home around 5:15.
Oh wow.
Long day for him. So he takes the bus.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's move on. How do you ensure that milestones reflect not just the achievement but also the effort and growth behind them?
I mean, milestones are just, in my thinking, is a step along a longer journey you're on. And every milestone doesn't need to be success. They can be
Right.
setbacks too.
Mm-hmm.
And setbacks also kind of make you learn things.
Yeah.
Because when you have a small setback, it's like, okay, what is it that you did not do that could have that came in the way in such a manner? So I think what we really think about is like it's a journey you're on. At some point we let you go and you'll take your journey on your own. And right now we are there with you. But every success, every milestone is an accomplishment. But it's like a check mark in the journey that you're on right now. And take every setback as a learning, and that's normal, it happens, and then let's learn from it. Let's see what we could have done differently and move on. So that's the way we treat milestones and the path we are on. And that's the way we discuss the dialect table.
Let's move on to another segment, navigating challenges together. So challenges are inevitable, and in education, and in innovation, it is really you learn from your mistakes.
Right.
Yeah, but they often teach us the most valuable lessons. So, can you share a time when things didn't go as planned for Kunal or Ishaan? Let's talk about Kunal first.
So Kunal, I think, from an attitude perspective, he was spot on. He's hardworking, he's persevering. But the main thing is with Kunal, the challenge he had in TJ was he took very tough courses. So that was a challenge we ran into because he was very maybe over optimistic. Like in challenges, he took DNA science. He took a lot of similar courses at the same time in the same semester, which became challenging, right? So I think he had to work harder, and he had to kind of get creative on how he has to read those subjects. So that was a challenge we learned on. But it was like, okay, this is just a problem. There has to be a solution if there's a problem. So that's the way we tackled it. But that was one issue. That with Kunal's, if you're asking me, that's one example where we ran into. With Ishaan, it's mostly about time management. Now with theatre arts and drama, taking so much of his time. I think it's the main challenge with him is, Ishaan, you're doing everything perfect, but you know your grades are going a little down. Mom, I can take care of it. He does take care of it.
Yeah.
But that's when I have to sit with him. You know what, Ishaan, let me feel comfortable. You are comfortable, but I'm not yet. Let's find a schedule and let's have a plan. Okay, if you do these 4 tests well, everything will come back on track. And he brings them back. It's not a problem at all. But I think it's just because he has those commitments.
Right.
We don't want to have him not do them because that kind of grows him up as a person.
Right.
At the same time, I think the challenge of time management, teaching with time management is always a challenge.
It is.
I mean, you've seen that. I'm sure you've seen that with your kids as well. So I think it's the same story goes here.
Exactly. It's either, I think one joke in TJ is, do you want to have friends? Or do you or do you want to have friends, or do you want to, to have
Straight A's.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically like that. That's basically the challenge. Okay, let's building resilience through family values. So every family has core values that guide how they approach both successes and setbacks. What core family values do you feel guided you through Kunal and Ishaan's academic journeys?
So the main belief that every problem has a solution. If there's a problem, there has to be a solution.
From the IT perspective.
And there's no shortcut to success. I mean,
True.
if you are learning something, you cannot be shallow when you're learning. You have to learn it well, and then it becomes a mastery, and you move on to the next thing. And never give up. Setbacks will come in, but we just have to find an alternate solution to go around it. So that's what we really kind of work on, because just discussing something that didn't work fine will not help you get past it.
Right.
It's more about saying, okay, there's a problem. Our solution in the beginning has fallen flat. Something has not worked out well. So let's find an alternate solution and move on and take it from there. And the second thing we often discuss is, you know what, we are thinking about it so much right now, but let's scale back. In the big scheme of things, this is such a minuscule thing.
Right.
So that perspective suddenly lightens up, and then we find the solution and stop discussing the problem.
Yeah. Basically, choose your, you know, you got
Choose your
to
battle.
Right.
choose your battle.
Choose your battles, right.
Got to choose your battle.
Yeah.
And then I like the idea of iteration
Yeah.
because that's basically how scientists and engineers work.
And just persevering through those. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think perseverance is or
Mhm.
resilience and perseverance.
Yeah, so were there any specific family traditions or habits that helped build resilience through tough times?
I mean, it's mainly a lot of communication, support, and the realization that as a family we are together and we are all to support each other. And if you're running into a challenge, you're not alone. I mean, the five of us in our family, we are always going to be together. And that along with the topic, the things I mentioned earlier about don't give up, we are here with you. But it's active communication and the comfort of not being alone to solve it. The fact that you have your family around you and we'll find a way. I think that's what we typically.
Yeah, that's the importance of family. The importance of family, isn't it, as a core?
Yeah, it reminds me of a
Constitution.
quote, and I'll totally butcher this quote, but it's like, if you want to do something, do it by yourself. But if you want to go far, do it with other people.
And then also did they grow up with their grandparents? Because I know Asian culture has, tight family values.
ties,
Family ties, yeah.
They have a strong bond with them, especially us being here and they being in India. They could not grow up as much as they would have if we were living in India. But still, they had a very strong bond with their grandparents, and they kept visiting us, and we kept visiting them. So yes, absolutely. I mean, the grandparents always feel so proud when
Yes.
the grandkid does something, and that feeling of appreciation was always there for them from my sort of parents. So I think yes, it was not like constant daily interaction, but still the bond was very strong, and
That's really
it
good.
always is.
That's good. That's good. I hope that would, inspire our listeners to tighten family ties because that is a huge foundation for learning, isn't it? Because at school, some of my students who are dealing with learning problems, you go back to the family and, that's what emotional learning comes in.
Right.
Yeah, so the families are not,
Right.
bonded together. So I love to see the fact you are one story about, having a strong family ties. And that's why these kids grow up, strong and resilient, and they are successful.
And
Right.
both my father and my mother-in-law, they were both into academics. They both were teachers in their lives, and they have done great wonders. So I think that perspective was always there.
Yeah, and I know in Asian culture, you respect teachers.
Oh, absolutely.
I know. I was like, how I wish it's here in America. You respect teachers. It's like, the university professors, China, India, and in the Philippines. Yeah.
Right. Because they say, like, there's a quote they say that when, again, I'm not remembering the exact thing, but it's like a poem. But what it really means is that a kid was asked, like, if there's God standing in front of you and a teacher, whose feet will you touch first? The person says that teachers, because he taught me about God. That's the kind of realization. There's a lot of respect for teachers, and it always is.
Yeah. And then at the school, at the Young Scholar Circle or Masterpiece Academy, your boys are very respectful of all the teachers that they had. Yeah, very respectful. So I can tell, you can see the value. Yeah. So advice and inspiration for other parents. So your story is full of wisdom. And let's share some advice for other parents navigating similar path. So what one piece of advice would you share to our listeners?
Right. I mean, first of all, like every parent kind of thinks the best for their kids. I'm not in a position to kind of really advise other parents to raise their kids a certain way. But one thing I'll definitely say as part of my learning is let the kids grow on their own as well. Be there to support them, guide them, but also kind of give them some space where they can also think and evolve as well. So that is the main thing I would say. But I'm sure like every parent kind of finds a way around their kids to kind of be the best for them. But giving them a little space And you need to be there, but be there around them in a way where they are not being controlled, but they are able to kind of think. But then you're still there to steer them around if they have to be supported.
No, I just really like how family ties is definitely important.
It is.
And really, we've seen it in your journey and the kids' journey as well. It's interesting to see how your parents kind of shaped you in that way. And it's really nice to hear that your parents were both teachers.
Right.
And the way that you just basically gave the same amount of love and importance, of academic success is now in your kids' life.
Yeah, you pass it on.
Yeah,
you pass it on.
that's awesome.
So, well, thank you so much for sharing your heartfelt reflections, and thank you so much for coming here. I hope you would come back.
Absolutely. And my third one is getting geared up. He's worked with you last year, but definitely as he goes and starts preparing for high school in 4 years from now, he'll be with you.
Yeah, and I hope I could invite Ishaan next time, because in our next episode, you will see Kunal, who was our student in the past when he was in elementary, and now he has grown up to be a young man who is now a mentor to our students. So, yeah, stay tuned. Thank you so much, listeners, for joining us, Learning by Design by the Masterpiece Academy. And you can find us in www.masterpiecekatesol.org. Until then, keep engaging minds, educating hearts, and crafting your masterpieces. Please like and subscribe to our podcast.